everybody. Welcome back to Miami Total Football Radio, the show. We're back once again for our weekly episode here on the podcast. It is also known as Miami Total Football Radio, the show. If you're watching this, don't get confused. This is not a wrestling podcast. This is a football podcast. But I'm decked out in my NWO gear because obviously the big news in the United States today is that Hulk Hogan, the legend, has passed away. Rest in peace. I grew up watching Hulk Hogan. Soccer was always my first, like the earliest memory of a sport or sports entertainment I have is USA versus Colombia at the 94 World Cup. And USA pulled off the shock win. And my dad threw me and my brother in the pool for post-game celebrations. I remember that very clearly. I was 5 years old. But like the first athlete or personality or celebrity or whatever that stuck in my head as a child was Hulk Hogan. I don't watch wrestling anymore. I haven't for a long time, but loved it when I was a kid. Hulk Hogan was the guy. So rest in peace to Hulk Hogan, wearing the shirt here in his honor. And yeah, I've got quite a few things about wrestling this year. Actually, I just received this book, Andrea, from Mark Raimondi, ESPN reporter. So anyway, this is not a wrestling podcast. This is a football podcast. Although some of the comments will probably have us feeling like it's wrestling pretty soon. Andrea, how are you? Thank you for joining us once again here. Andrea Llanes, a.k.a. our beloved Ajicita.
Hi, Franco. Good, I'm good. And yeah, rest in peace to Hulk Hogan. I don't watch that, as I have said here before. I didn't watch it. Yes, I know what it is, but I knew Hulk Hogan because of his reality show. So that was fun. And rest in peace to him. Yeah, it was the news today here in the United States. I don't think only in the United States because it's one of those
Probably
athletes that
worldwide,
he's famous here, but he was famous all over the world. And it's just not just here. As because people usually say NFL, I always laugh because NFL they say, oh, they're famous. No one knows players from the NFL outside from here. But Hulk Hogan, yes, he was known, and he was known in Honduras. He was known all over the place. So yeah, but yeah, my first.
I didn't know his full. I know he's internationally, he's known, but I didn't know how much known. So I didn't want to put my foot in my mouth and say something that could have been incorrect because I don't really know the overall impact of Hulk Hogan, but I know he was the first wrestler to start being in movies in Hollywood. So he was that larger than life character, the first wrestler to really transcend just wrestling. Yeah. But actually, wrestling was the first. I won't call it a sport because it's sports entertainment, but it was the first thing where I really started learning like the different personalities and the different characters. And then that's what kind of snowballed me to get back into sports in general. Once I found out wrestling was fake as a kid, I was like, "Oh, this is fake. Oh no, let me go learn about like the real stuff, the
real
people that are actually competing for real." Although, look, no hate for wrestlers because they put their bodies on the line. Very physical, even if the results are scripted. All right, Andrea, we have a show that we have to do in an hour and 10 minutes or less because that is the new guideline. Otherwise, I get one of these red cards. Look, Hulk Hogan, yellow and red. Look, yellow and red. The Hulkamania yellow and red cards for the show. And Andrea, we're going to talk a lot about Lionel Messi
we have a lot
on
of
this show.
Talk, yes.
Normally, we talk about the most recent game. We analyze the X's and O's, the starting line, Javier Mascherano's tactics. But on this one, we are going to. I like your shirt, by the way. And for those listeners who do not watch Miami Total Football Radio, I'm just wearing a Club World Cup t-shirt, a white shirt with gold lettering and the gold logo. Very nice.
It was a little, and on the back it's really pretty. I don't know if I can turn it because I'm gonna move everything, but it has all the cities. It was like a little souvenir that I got from covering the World Cup.
Well, that's
actually
nice.
In Orlando because this was cheaper in Orlando than it was here in Miami.
I actually got the ball. I got the Club World Cup ball. I really liked the ball, especially since
I like the ball too.
We got to play with the official one during the Copa de Medios that Inter Miami threw right before the Club World Cup. I got the official ball. I really liked it. All right. Anyway, we've got a lot to talk about with regarding one Lionel Messi, Andrea. And that's because, well, he had some hoopla, some controversy, some drama this week, or at least the headlines did, because he was not present at the MLS All-Star Game. No jugó, no apareció, no estuvo parte de los eventos. So, no Lionel Messi at the All-Star Game in Austin, Texas during the midweek. In the early part of the week, there was questions as to whether he would show up the day of the game. Jose Armando, aka Island Jose, our beloved co-host here on this show, put out the information on Wednesday that Messi would not be playing. He broke that news. It was expected, or it was suspected, because he wasn't there Monday or Tuesday, but nobody had reported it. There was still thought that he might arrive. Jose broke that news. Messi did not partake. And there's a lot to dissect about what happened in the first half of this week between MLS, between Messi, between Inter Miami. So we're going to jump into all of it. We're going to do it in chronological order. Towards the end, we'll have a Rodrigo de Paul update to give you of sorts. We will preview this week's game against FC Cincinnati. It'll tie into all of this, but we're going to do this in chronological order because I think it makes the most sense, Andrea. So before Inter Miami played the New York Red Bulls, which feels like forever ago, but it was just this past weekend, this past Saturday, Javier Mascherano in his match day -1, his pregame press conference, was asked by Jose about Lionel Messi and Jordi Alba's statuses for the All-Star Game. Jose was already a step ahead, was already thinking ahead, the visionary that is Jose Armando. And this was the response that Mascherano gave with regards to their potential, because at that point we didn't know anything, their potential participation in the All-Star Game, which happened, of course, a few days later.
Con respecto al All-Star, me dijiste, ¿no? Con respecto al All-Star, no, a ver, no, que yo sepa, no tengo nada que decir. Los jugadores están convocados y no. Claramente, a mí me gustaría que la semana larga puedan descansar después del trajín que vienen, pero no es un tema mío. Sé que lo importante es que se lo All-Star acá ¿cómo es? En esta liga, en este país, y que yo sepa no hay ninguna decisión del club. Todo normal.
Todo normal were Javier Mascherano's final words there. And for those of you who don't speak English don't speak Spanish or understand Spanish, he said along the lines of, not much of an update. They've been chosen to go. If it were up to me, they would not go so they could have, the full week to rest and prepare. But as far as I know, there's nothing new. Okay, that was on Friday. Inter Miami plays the New York Red Bulls on Saturday, and they post a very impressive come-from-behind 5-1 victory over the Red Bulls. Messi with another brace, continuing his hot run of form, especially after having that midweek loss to FC Cincinnati. So he picks up kind of where he's been at in the last few weeks. Inter Miami wins. They go into the All-Star week, because not a break, All-Star week, with a good positive result, which again we can touch on a little bit later, but focusing on the bigger stuff here. Monday happens, and normally, Andrea, we get, you and I and the other core media members that cover Inter Miami on a day-to-day, normally we get an email from the media team, right? The Inter Miami press corps that slays out the schedule for the week. Andrea, did we get that this week?
No.
Not initially. We got it, but later.
And we ask, since I wanted to say this because we ask, since you guys know that we work with the Dolphins also, and the NFL started back this week with training camp. So we ask the media members what was the schedule going to be like this week, because we had to go to training camp. And there was no answer until later in the week. And you can continue to say what happened.
I wanted to get you involved here because I was talking a lot. Mm-hmm. So we didn't get it like we normally do. We didn't get it as
No.
early as we do. Sometimes it's on Sunday, maybe Monday.
Even though with requests, yeah, we didn't get any.
Correct. And you guys had asked, you and Jose had asked, because of course, again, you were planning for Dolphins coverage, so you needed to try to figure out your schedule ahead of time, but there were no answers. And we didn't get the Inter Miami media advisory until, let me pull it up so I make sure I give the correct date here, correct date and time, until Monday afternoon, which is not normally the case. Not normally the case. Normally we get it before. On Monday afternoon, it laid out the week, and it said the only time that we were going to have interviews with Inter Miami, the only time we could attend training this week was on Friday, the day before they host FC Cincinnati. Now, that's also a bit unusual because normally Inter Miami has 2 media availabilities a week. Whether they play just once in that week or whether they have a midweek game or not, they normally have 2 media availabilities in which we can go to training.
That's by rule, supposed.
So I
Just
don't
to
have
let
that.
people know that's a rule. Mm-hmm.
So normally we go twice a week, whether they have 1 game, 2 games, whatever the case is. But this week that was not the case. So something was already.
I want to add that every other team had both days media availability, even though they had players in the All-Star also. They trained normally.
So something clearly was off, right? Something was a bit different in terms of this week. Now, the initial explanation, from what I understand, was that because there was the All-Star game, MLS didn't want attention taken away from the All-Star game, which doesn't, I mean, if other teams are training and doing availability, I mean, just because it's Inter Miami, is that what they were trying to say? I mean, that's the official explanation. I mean, if we're being honest and real here, like we always are, that's nonsense. That's bullcrap. It's bullshit, because obviously what goes into now the start of the week.
The cover up.
So Messi does not partake in the MLS All-Star team's first training session on Monday. He is absent from that. So questions start to get asked. Is he going to be available? Is he not going to be available? And why is this important? Before we get into the bigger topic of, is an All-Star game, does it have any real value? Does it have any meaning? Should they scrap it? Before we get into all that debate, because everybody has opinions, there's been a lot of conversation about this in the last few days, especially from fans who are maybe new to MLS or who are international fans, but not, necessarily MLS fans. This is their first exposure to MLS. Before we get into all of those questions and those debates, if Messi does not partake, and this is by rule, this is not something that Franco Panizo or Andrea Llanes or Pepito Lescamoso or anybody else is saying this should happen because it has to be this way. No, this is the rule as it has been written and has been implemented in most cases by MLS in recent years. If you miss the MLS All-Star game, be it through injury or be it by your just decision to not show up, you are then suspended for the next, maybe suspended is not the right word. You are ineligible to partake, to play in your club team's next game. That's why Messi's absence was such a big talking point. That's why it was such a headline grabber. Because if he did not play on Wednesday, by rule, he should not be eligible to play this Saturday. Now, against the Red Bulls, he played 90 minutes. Unlike Jordi Alba, who left the game with a very convenient injury. Maybe he was injured. Maybe. Puede ser. But Messi did not have any sort of issue or health problem. Nothing. So unless he got injured between Saturday and Monday or Tuesday, then, which I doubt, I highly doubt, then we know what this is. We know that it was Messi deciding not to go, and now it's damage control from MLS, and then underneath that, of course, Inter Miami, which led to a lot of frustration, a lot of criticism, maybe not from Inter Miami fans, but from MLS fans who are not happy about what is being perceived as favorable treatment. Because outright, again, Messi by rule should not be able to play this weekend. However,
Yeah,
Don
and it has
Garber,
happened in the past. I remember Zlatan saying he didn't want to go, and he didn't go, and he was
got
suspended
suspended.
next game.
correct.
And he was the star of the league in that moment, right? And it's for me, the whole situation is just unfortunate. I have so much to say about this because, of course, Inter Miami fans, not only Inter Miami fans, but regular Messi fans, which are 1,000% more crazy than anything you have seen in this earth or in the universe, maybe. They don't get. I understand that MLS All-Star is a joke for everyone else. We know that this doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. But listen, this is something about American culture. And for me, the worst part of this is that Messi is always disrespecting the American culture. Because I even wrote it down. He has missed all MLS media days that were done here in Miami since he came because they wanted him to be here. He has missed all 3 All-Stars since he got here. He missed the MVP ceremony. He missed that. He missed the Medal of Honor that the president gave to him last year. He missed that also. He has missed everything. Everything that has to do with American tradition, he has missed. So for me, that is just plain disrespectful on Messi's part because then you see him travel when he has to record un anuncio. How do we say anuncio?
Commercial?
A commercial with Patrick Mahomes, then he travels. He goes to the Super Bowl. He goes when it's about a commercial and about him
He's
getting
a businessman. He's a businessman.
paid. But that is just the worst because MLS is paying you $50 million a year, and you're not giving them anything. That represents. Hold
on. You can't say he's not giving them anything because on the field he's giving them a lot.
Yes, but what else has Messi given MLS? Because the money goes to him.
So that's fair.
The money goes to him.
We'll get to the bigger.
There are teams that have never received Messi playing in their stadiums, and that's why we haven't seen any rule changes. Because how are you gonna go and ask an owner when Messi has snubbed every activity that MLS has done? Messi has snubbed it. He doesn't talk. He doesn't show up. He didn't even go to meet the greatest honor that you could receive as a civilian. He didn't even go. So for me, it's just plain disrespectful.
A Hulk Hogan yellow card. Hulkamania yellow card. Hold on. We're gonna get there. These are the bigger talking points, which you're not wrong, and there's plenty to dissect. There's a lot of meat on the bone. But let's focus on why it's important. Because I don't know if everybody understands why it was important, why he needed to be there or not be there. Maybe some people do know, but I don't feel like everybody knows. And the reason was, again, his availability for Saturday. So again, by rule, he should be suspended for Saturday. By rule, he should not be able to play in this very important match with Inter Miami versus FC Cincinnati, which just beat Inter Miami 3-0 a little bit over a week ago. He shouldn't be eligible for that game. However, Don Garber, yesterday before the MLS All-Star match in Austin, Texas, had his State of the Union, which he normally does twice a year, maybe 3 times, but beginning of the season, mid-season, and end of season. And he already started to lay the groundwork, it sounds like, for Messi being available for this week's match. So let's listen to Don Garber. I think this is the first soundbite in a long time, maybe ever on Miami Total Football Radio. Maybe not. In which Don Garber speaks. I don't think it's the first one, actually, but first one in a long time. Let's listen to Don Garber. It is in English. No translation needed. Here we go from the MLS commissioner.
We have a player who is, I don't know how tall Leo is, but he's playing 9 matches in 30 days. We have a schedule. Miami's had a schedule that is unlike any other team. Most of our teams have had a 10-day break. Miami hasn't. We had Leo playing 90 minutes in almost all the games that he's played. Somebody gave me this stat. It was 5 games in the last, what was it, Dan? 5 games in the last, yeah. So
that's 9 games in 35 days. So everybody knows it's 4 Club World Cup and then 5. And he's played 90 minutes in every game.
So we have to manage through that as a league. At the same time, we do have rules, and we have to manage through that as well. So we would have loved to have Leo here. We'd have loved to have every player that was selected for the All-Star team here. And after this All-Star Game. We'll figure out what needs to happen this weekend. I was told this morning that neither Jordi or Messi practiced today. So Jordi came off with an injury in last game, and we'll have to manage through what Miami is going to say about that.
So a lot to dissect there, because Don Garber says we. I know he's talking about the league, but he says we when talking about Messi and managing Messi in the minutes, which is very strange because you're a league commissioner, right? And a lot of people have, outside of the Inter Miami bubble, outside of Inter Miami fans, have criticized him because it's not his job to manage Messi's minutes. His job is to organize the league event and try to get as much star power as possible.
Buanga and LAFC have the same amount of matches. They played the Club World Cup. They played the CONCACAF Champions League, and LAFC played against America, playing for the Club World Cup. So they were in the same situation. Inter Miami, it's something that I want to say. Inter Miami is not the team that has played the most matches in the year, because LAFC is in the same situation as Seattle Sounders. So that's just an excuse. That's just an excuse because, of course, the league needs him. Because the league without Messi is not the same. Apple TV without Messi is not the same, you know. They need him to play against Cincinnati, especially in a game at home with a rival like Cincinnati that they are fighting for the first places in the Eastern Conferences. So they need him. But after that, Don Garber continues to talk and says, oh, but we have to see. But, you know, I get what you're saying, and I totally agree with people that are mad, because you have to look at it at a point that it's a league. He's the commissioner of a league, not a commissioner for Inter Miami. But at the same time, Inter Miami, the league needs Messi and Inter Miami in this moment.
So it's a very complex topic. A lot of hoopla regarding all of this, because it's not so straightforward, right? If you're on Inter Miami and or just Lionel Messi side, you could say he doesn't need to play. He needs to be rested. He's played a lot lately. I mean, that's Inter Miami's dilemma, right? Like they could have rested him in this recent stretch. They could have given him some minutes, you know. So the fact that he's potentially needs rest, I mean, that's not MLS's concern. That is an Inter Miami concern. Which again, fair. Fine. Messi doesn't want to go. You can't force him, but then you have to abide by the rules, or at least you should. But when Don Garber says we have to work through that, I mean, why do you have to work through that? Isn't it just clear cut? Isn't it straightforward? Shouldn't it be, if you don't play, then you have to miss the game? Last year, this is not new, right? Last year, Luis Suarez did not partake in the All-Star game. Now, the reasoning that was given was knee discomfort. And we all know that Luis Suarez does have a lot of knee pain. You can see it when he plays. You can see it when he runs. And if you followed him at all in the last few years, you know he's been dealing with that at least since he was playing in Brazil. Apparently, he gets injections before games to be able to play. So that I could understand, even though it was presented after the fact last year for Luis Suarez, because he did play in the following game, which, by the way, was also against FC Cincinnati, which, by the way, he scored the 2 goals in. That's fine. You know what? In that place, in that stance, you know, I could understand feeling hard done by, but I can understand because he does have knee issues, right? He definitely has them. With Messi, there is no injury right now, right? Not that we know of. There is no injury. So if you have to work through that, it's because you're just trying to appease your cash cow. I mean, we're going to call it like it is. Messi is la vaca sagrada. Messi is the golden goose, the sacred cow. He is what, like you said, drives money and attention to MLS. So MLS would essentially be shooting itself in the foot if it suspends him for Saturday's game. Everything I've heard, this is information, sources have told me, MLS knew that Messi was not going to play in the All-Star game. They just didn't say anything.
And that's the worst part of this, because Inter Miami and MLS knew. I can attest for what I knew since Tuesday or maybe Monday morning that he was not going to travel. And MLS and Inter Miami just waited. Inter Miami, radio silence. Even now, they haven't said anything. And MLS waited. People bought tickets for this game. The cheapest ticket was $250. So for me, it's just unacceptable by the league, by Inter Miami, by Messi, because he's not going to go. You should have said something before. And it's a situation that people are getting tired of it happening. And that's why Inter Miami, unfortunately, is one of the most hated teams in the MLS.
But usually when you compile star talent, normally you end up I mean, you draw a lot of attention, but you have a section of fans that just dislike you because you're the popular team, you're the it team, you're the team that gets all the attention. So that's normal, right? When the Miami Heat had the big three, same thing. You know, there was a lot of people that loved the Miami Heat, but then there was a lot of people that hated the Miami Heat. There was no really in the middle. Same thing with Inter Miami, right? They're the popular team. They've got Messi. But again, when you're the commissioner, this should have been laid out beforehand. But why didn't MLS lay it out beforehand? Why didn't MLS make it clear cut that Messi was not going to play? If, again, based on what I'm hearing, what I heard, and what you've heard, they knew that he wasn't going to be there, right? Because if you look at the flyers and things, he wasn't on them, right? Why wasn't he on them? If he's going to play or potentially going to play, and you're selling tickets with that in mind, why isn't he on the ads in Austin? Because they knew he wasn't going to go. They knew he wasn't going to play. I've heard that was already known, it's already established. I've heard it's already established that he will not be punished this weekend, that he will play on Saturday. I've heard that
then you're gonna get FC Cincinnati complaining, and they will be totally right, because it's not only about what we're talking about with the people, with the fans, but also it's the sportsmanship. Why would FC Cincinnati be happy with that? It's not fair play. The rules are the rules.
It's not right.
So it's really unfortunate.
Evander, who is Cincinnati's star player, he was at the All-Star game. He had to partake. He had to be away from the team. He had to. What if he was like, I don't want to go either. I don't want to go. Would he be allowed to play this weekend also?
He wouldn't. He wouldn't. So and that's unfortunate, because we have talked about this in the past, when every time something like this happens, because unfortunately Inter Miami has Messi, but we have seen this happen a lot in MLS, a lot with the, for example, Hong Kong and the mess that was there, a lot of times, unfortunately. And it's really, they by this, Messi has been here for more than 2 years. They should have 2 years and a couple of days. They should have learned how to manage it better, because for me, it's just unacceptable by the league and by Inter Miami and for the competition, because you are breaking the rules. You're breaking the rules, and then anyone, I understand the fans from other teams that can say, okay, dale el trofeo, give them the trophy, because if you bend the rules for them, that is just a step away, because when you lose fair play, you lose everything in the competition. So it is really unfortunate, and I would understand, and I know for a fact that a lot of owners and a lot of teams are mad with this, with Messi and all this circus, because if the league and Inter Miami had managed this better, this will be a nothing burger. But since they didn't, then it grows in this whole spectacle, this circus that we're gonna be talking for this week, and then the next week, and then depending on the result. What if Messi scores 5 goals on Saturday? What is FC Cincinnati going to say? They're gonna feel robbed, and they would be they would be right to feel that way, because
FC Cincinnati has
the rules.
Yes, FC Cincinnati has every reason to feel hard done by, right? Because if their player has to participate, then so should Inter Miami's. And if Inter Miami gets an exception, then so should they. And that's why MLS implemented this rule to begin with, because a lot of players years ago started skipping out on the All-Star game. And again, we'll talk about whether there should be an All-Star game, if it should be in the middle, why there's one. We'll talk about that in a couple minutes here. But regarding Messi, if he plays, FC Cincinnati has every right to feel upset. And it does seem like MLS is playing favorites. Now, we understand the reality of this league. This league is starved for attention. This league needs more eyeballs. And Messi brings that. Messi brings that attention. Messi brings those eyeballs, at least on game days. And that's important to MLS. And I completely understand that. Completely get that. If I'm just sitting in the garbage seat, I would understand that. But it's Bush League then to not come out and say beforehand, hey, he's not going to partake. We're not going to punish him. And you know what? Maybe we do need to give teams the exception to have, at least one player or whatever rule they make up to try to mitigate this. Because what this has done, take it away from Inter Miami, because I know this is obviously an Inter Miami focused podcast, and we operate in the bubble of Inter Miami world, but outside of the bubble, there is a bigger MLS landscape. And there's what MLS has done, what Don Garber has done, they've created a lot of negative sentiment for the league and towards Inter Miami and towards Messi. I heard from someone today that was in Austin that for some reason they said Lionel Messi's name in the stadium. And if somebody was in Austin, please attest if this is true, but this is what I heard. They said his name in the stadium. I don't know if they were just going through the MLS All-Star roster and they just said his name. And he got booed and whistled. Like his name just got booed and whistled. And that's the sentiment now that MLS is starting to create even more so, right? If it happens naturally, organically, because he's the star player and you don't want to help the star player. You want to make him, try to unravel him, or fine, that's normal. But if you're feeding into that narrative by making decisions like this, I think you're doing it to yourself. You're just shooting yourself in the foot. So yes, Messi will be there on Saturday. Maybe he scores goals. It'll be his first goals against FC Cincinnati, which will even add more fuel to the fire because he has yet to score on that team in his 2.5 seasons here, or 2.5 seasons here. But you don't need to do this if you're MLS, because you're really, really, really hurting yourself.
It's just a bad
in the longer run.
look, because exactly this game, since it being against Liga MX, you get all this media attention. And you got Liga MX with Sergio Ramos, with all their stars coming in and playing in this game. And the biggest talking point was no Messi. And even rumors were swirling. I was watching TV, Spanish TV, Mexican TV, and they were saying, insiders were saying that they even offered Messi more money and he declined coming. What I can tell you is this: the league was trying until the last day. Maybe that's a salvedad that I can give them, that they were trying until Tuesday night to get Messi to go to the All-Star Game. So they knew that he didn't want to go, but the league tried to get him there, and it was just a negative response from Lionel Messi. And that's what I was when I started with my rant, because that's just, for me, disrespectful for the American fans, the American fans that like MLS, and the league is from here. So I have said this in the past 1,000 times. We laugh about it. We know that All-Star is a joke or whatever, but it's tradition, and it's tradition in every sport here. And you go and you play, you are there. For example, someone was writing to me, oh, but LeBron missed the All-Star game in the NBA this year. Yeah, but LeBron was there the whole week before. He did interviews. He was there during the game. He talked to media. He talked with his teammates. He was there. Messi didn't even take a moment to travel and say hi to the fans that bought tickets to see him. So
I'm not going to say your information is wrong. I'm just going to say what I've heard. Is we can hear different things. I don't know who's right or who's wrong. The information I have is that MLS knew he wasn't going to go. Like, that's what I have. I have that. They knew he wasn't going to go. And that all this talk of negotiating to the last minute to try to get him, from what I'm hearing, is just posturing, damage control, just to make it seem. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe your information is better than mine. Maybe MLS did, in fact, really try to do it. But from what I'm hearing, that was not the case. Messi was never going to go, and that was clear. There was even an announcement today about TikTok and Messi being involved, or some MLS announcement, press release for Leagues Cup. And all this stuff gets sorted way in advance, right? Like, this wasn't something like for us, on the day-to-day as media and as fans, we take it more day-to-day. But in terms of bigger picture, like planning, organization, this is all talked about well in advance. Now, obviously, injuries can come into play and all that. But normally, generally speaking, you're like, all right, we would like you there. This is what we want. No, I'm not going to be there. Okay. So this was, from what I hear, this was done well in advance. Let's go to the comment section very quickly before we change gears to the bigger picture that you started to touch on there. And let's go with V Vega. think it's the first time V Vega comments, says, tit for tat. If MLS suspends Messi Saturday, then Miami should say Messi will rest 2 upcoming away games, those in large stadiums. I mean, Inter Miami could do that, but then they shoot themselves in the foot in terms of trying to give themselves the best chance to win. And Nick Smith says, MLS put themselves in this situation by having to rely on Messi so much. They should have started to make the rule changes after he first came in order to draw more and better players to grow the league. Mitch adds, it's not FC Cincinnati's business to complain. They wouldn't complain if it was Ryan Saylor missing the All-Star game. Teams have bigger things to worry about. I disagree with you, Mitch. If you're FC Cincinnati, you have every right to complain.
Exactly. Evander is in the same position as Messi. He is in the running up. One of the few players in this league that you can compare to the percentage of Messi being successful for their team. It's Evander and Buanga. They're the runner-ups for MVPs, and he traveled, and he's gonna be tired for Saturday.
So let's go to Pedri Potter while we start to switch gears here. Pedri Potter asks a very good question, in my opinion. Pedri asks, what is the obsession of Americans to impose their traditions on the beautiful game of football and ruin it, just like in CC? I don't know what CC means. CC means
Club World Cup, I guess.
CONCACAF champion. I don't know. Oh, okay, maybe.
I'm guessing.
But so that's a good question, and that is a fair question, and we can talk about this just for like 5, 6, 7 minutes here because we got to start switching gears to this weekend. But Andrea, we've touched on this, and we could go on for a week. We could have a podcast every night for a week, and we could go into this and divide it into different chapters. I mean, let me ask you this clearly first before we get into the topic. Do you think the All-Star Game is necessary?
No.
Okay. So I agree with you. I don't think it's necessary, right? It's definitely an American custom. It's an American ideology, American tradition. And obviously football is an international sport, but it is being played here in the United States. So then that's where the dynamic is different, right? Because
that is one of the things that you can do without changing everything, without secondary assists, without inventing those dumb rules that MLS has. That is, the All-Star Game is one thing that you can do to connect with American fans who like the sport but maybe are not into it because it's so different to what are they accustomed to. That is one of the things that you can do to tap into that market, because we know, of course, football is different. The rules are different. Not every league has conferences and all the things that MLS has. But this is something that could bring in the fans that you need for teams to be successful here. You need Americans to get into the game and to like this game. And that this is something that can draw people to MLS, especially because that's what the league needs.
I don't know if they keep trying to do these MLS challenges like the day before games that were played on Tuesday. That was just terrible. And listen,
that is just
everybody has a job to do, and I get that, but the fake excitement, the overly done excitement from the commentary team was terrible. It made it very cringe. Anyway, to the point of the All-Star Game, it is an American tradition. I will share some insight with the listeners, with the viewers, because I've covered several All-Star Games throughout my time. I stopped doing it much lately. The last one I think I went to was in 2021, and it was when Rodolfo Pizarro was named the first Inter Miami All-Star in team history, and it was in Los Angeles. I've covered other ones in Colorado, Kansas City, Philadelphia. I've covered a bunch. One of the reasons why MLS and Don Garber kind of touched on this yesterday a little bit during his press conference was one of the reasons why it's so important, besides the game, besides the attempt to highlight the league's best talents, is because it is an opportunity during the season to get all of the big wigs, all of the executives, the owners in the same city for a period of time. That does not happen throughout much of the rest of the year. There isn't, the time to do it. Everyone has different schedules. So the All-Star Game, like MLS Cup, are normally the two events in which todos los ejecutivos, o la mayoría de los ejecutivos, the majority of the executives, are in market, in the same market. And they can get together and have their board of governors meeting. They can talk about rule changes. They can express, the challenges. They can express the rebuttals to those challenges to try to quell the fears. So in that aspect, it's very important for MLS. Now, could they do meetings on their own time without a game and with all the circus? Yes,
It would
probably,
not be the same,
but it would not be the
because
same.
you don't get
Correct.
media attention. That's why all the leagues do it this way. It's something that MLS copied from American sports that is done the same in all 4 or 5 leagues that are major in this country. And and you're right, that is also important to mention.
That's important to MLS right now.
Mhm.
To the average fan or the international fan, they don't give a crap about. They might not give a
Yeah.
crap about. And MLS has
As-
tried different iterations of the All-Star Game. They used to have East versus West in terms of the
Mhm.
conferences. Then they did
Europe,
MLS
yeah.
versus European clubs.
Mhm.
Now lately it's been MLS versus the Liga MX All-Stars. They've tried different iterations to generate more buzz, but it doesn't really resonate. And this goes to the overall point that Messi fans have made, Inter Miami fans have made. And I don't disagree with you, and I don't think Andrea disagrees with you. It is unnecessary to have the All-Star Game from a sporting aspect. I agree with that. If I was the commissioner, there would probably not be an All-Star Game in the middle of the season, especially in the middle of a week. So completely agree with that. However, this is where MLS is it's just in a tough spot. It's in an American league that is part of a global game, and trying to figure out how to tap into the American market while also abiding by the existing traditions is very difficult. It's a challenging highway to traverse. It's just not easy. And MLS is trying to appeal to Americans, but also try to somewhat keep it on the path. And it's not an easy dance. It's not an easy dance. Look, if MLS had done a better job in its first 30 years of generating more attention from the general American public in this sport, which is not, in the top 3 sports here in the United States, unfortunately. If it had done a better job at that, then maybe Messi is forced then to miss the game. But because Messi has more pull, more influence, more power than MLS, he can call the shot and say, I'm not going. And MLS will abide by that and say, yes, master. But that's just how it is. That's just how it is.
It's a bad look. Because as I told you before, for me, Messi has come here to the United States and he has liked the business part, but he hasn't given anything to grow American football.
And I think that
what has he done to grow American football? Have you seen him with kids going to clinics in New York, in Kansas City? No, absolutely nothing. And when he has had the opportunity to go to these activities that would grow the game, he doesn't go. He doesn't go. And that's unfortunate for MLS because it's a missed opportunity. I was talking to you about the Medal of Freedom when Messi received it last year. You saw people from the NBA there. The league took advantage of that. And imagine if Messi has just taken a picture of him with the medal or something, what would that mean for MLS? For MLS in the American public, because all these Messi fans that are international are not gonna be here in the long run. They only care about Messi, but the league and Messi have not done enough to really grow American football, and that's just unfortunate because
American soccer or football. Which one?
They keep missing opportunities.
So Tom says this, and it was something you mentioned earlier that I'd like to amplify on a little bit. Tom says, feels like to me that Messi is giving MLS and the US his middle finger. Now, maybe that's not Messi's intent, but there can definitely be that perception. Absolutely. And look, I think it is a fair criticism to have. And I know that the Messi worker bees are going to start, putting their thumbs into action to tweet at me and try to do what they do. Messi, in and I know it's part of who he is, his personality, you know, I get that. But when he's been asked to do stuff that's outside of his comfort zone, he hasn't done it. He hasn't done it. And I'm not just talking about, I'm not talking about just Inter Miami. I'm not talking about just Inter Miami. I'm talking about throughout his career. Right? If you go and YouTube search, you know, the preseason videos that Barcelona, prime Barcelona from years ago did for a match that they were going to play in Asia somewhere. I don't know if it was China, Japan, I can't remember. You see all the big players, all of them say a phrase, a word, a sentence in that country's language. Messi was saved for last, and he just said it in Spanish. He did not do what the rest of his teammates did. He just did not. Whether he refused or whatever the case is, he just didn't do it. And if you go throughout YouTube and you look up, I don't even know what terms you'd look, but Messi has, whenever someone asks him to say something in English, I think there was an interview in the Middle East that they did one time with him, and they asked him to say something in English on live TV, and he just refused to do it. He said, no. I don't think he likes to be brought out of his comfort zone. I think he's very much about, I'm going to do what I want to do, and then that's it. Now, is that the best approach when you are a handsomely paid player in a foreign league
where you to build the league, right?
Where you have to, I mean, your obligations are not just on the field, right? They're just not. You are paid handsomely to help grow this sport, because this sport is not a top sport in this country. Unfortunately, I wish it were. Then Miami Total Football Radio might be broadcasted somewhere else. We might be in Honduras and Peru doing the show,
but
or we might
be
in
the
on
American
site.
Way, Franco. Because why do you care? You have 11 million followers on Instagram. If they're not here, they're not gonna go to the stadium. How does that help Inter Miami? So for me, it's
but I don't think he cares. I think he doesn't
understand
care.
that MLS. No, he doesn't care. That's what I'm saying. He doesn't care. He's just here to getting paid, because when he has to go and to record something with Patrick Mahomes, he goes with Mikel Oulta, and he's there. He went last year to that. When he was criticized because he went to a country, I don't even remember which country in Asia, that have a dictator, and then he talked with him. He appeared with him. He shook his hand. Then you see him do all this stuff with his sponsors, but he cannot do it for the league and for the growth in this sport here, because we know that every star that has come to this league, in my almost 10 years covering football here in this country, I have seen Beckham, I have seen Carlos Vela, I have seen Zlatan. They all try. I have seen David Villa, Gareth Bale. They all try and help, because they know that this is not the biggest sport here, and it maybe never will. In my opinion, it never will be. It can grow, but it will never replace the NFL. But they all have tried to do stuff the American way. You know, Americans love shows, they love late night shows, they love comedy, they love all that. So people dabble. These players have to dabble in that, and we haven't seen Messi dabble in that unless it's a paid sponsorship.
I wouldn't go as far as saying, you know, we need to see Messi in talk shows, because it's just not who he is. But should he be doing more than what he's doing? Yes, I think he should be doing more than what he's doing to help grow the sport. Because look, when he leaves, I don't think there's going to be much of a, you know, I don't think there's going to be much left over, right? There's not going to be much left over from the people that tuned in while he was here. I don't think there's going to be much left over from those fans, and they're going to be like, I'm going to keep watching MLS because MLS is great. I just don't see that. Padre Potter adds, I respect it. You can't whitewash Messi. Look, I don't think you need to whitewash Messi. I don't think it's about that. I think it's about assimilating one to the country you're in and the league that you're in. MLS is not La Liga. MLS is not Ligue 1 in France, where he also played. MLS is MLS. It is a growing league. That's why they invested money into him, so that he can help grow the sport. Now, look. Exactly. If there was a piece of paper, you know, 2 years ago, and it said, you either get Messi with these conditions or you don't get Messi, I think anybody in MLS, I think if you were in the position, if I were in the, I think you sign it and you say, that's fine. I'd rather have Messi than not have Messi if I'm a growing league. But you also, if you're a growing league, put yourself in MLS's position. Also would like to have a little bit more from him. Capitalize on his time here. He doesn't have to do interviews every day. He doesn't have to make appearances every day.
No,
But
it's
just
not even
try
about
to
that. It's
help.
about activities. Exactly.
Try
do
to help the
soccer
sport
clinics,
enter
do something.
the daily conversation, because it's still
Mhm.
not in the daily conversation in this country, and that's with Messi here.
Have you seen Stephen A. Smith talking about Messi? No, and that's a missed up. I always say this in the show. That's a missed opportunity because that's when you go mainstream. Imagine what would that mean for MLS to have all these people who
That's
have.
but we're saying it from MLS's viewpoint, and I think a lot of people don't see it that way because they just look at it from Messi's viewpoint because they're just Messi fans. If you're an in-between fan, then this should be important to you because it does, form what the
Messi's
future of this
played
league
to
could
play
be.
for Miami. That's what's his name?
Tunde
Tun-
Balak says
Balak.
Messi is
That
paid
is
to play for
incorrect
Miami.
because he's paid by the whole league, by the owners of the whole league. I know Inter Miami pays the majority of his salary, but a great percentage comes from the other owners from the league. That's a fact.
Tunde Balak in full said Messi's paid to play for Miami. The end. Messi had many offers. MLS presented an offer on the premise that he would stay out of the spotlight. There's a lot of investors. There's a lot of people that want more Messi. They want to see more Messi, and that would help MLS. Messi could help MLS more if he wanted to. He's just choosing not to.
Yeah.
He's like he always has. He's just focusing on the field, which, look, if that's what you want to do, that's your prerogative, fair. But you can also be criticized for not maximizing the ability to help this league grow. Look, Messi ended up leaving Paris on bad terms because they just didn't like how he carried himself there. Aside from Inter Miami and aside from the diehard Messi fans, right now the sentiment is negative. Maybe he ends his MLS day with not the best impressions across the board. Maybe the section of Inter Miami fans and the section of Messi fans will rave about what he does, but maybe the other 29 teams in the league, their fans, won't look too positively on his time here. They won't remember it fondly. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
And
History
that also hasn't helped for MLS and the changes that are being proposed to open up the league a little bit more to be implemented. Because some owners, for a fact, I know, don't want another Messi happening and another player coming here and putting the league in the position that the league is right now. So it's really unfortunate because it would take so little. And I think Messi and MLS will be both benefited because of.
Sorry, and I could see Messi just being in his house with Antonella and his kids and be like, yes, you guys suck and I am the best. Keep paying me because you guys feed off of me, not me off of you.
Exactly, yeah.
Solid Rock says, I'm a Messi fan before MLS, but he should have at least tried to be there even if he wasn't playing.
Just to say hello, like I said, LeBron didn't play and people criticized the NBA because they announced it the day before that he was not going to play, but LeBron was there the whole week. He talked to media, he made activities, he played with kids, and that's what you do because LeBron understands that the league needs that, and they go and do that to every country. Now that's why the NBA, of all of the league, the NFL is the biggest league here in the country, but the NBA is the biggest league all around the world, and people love NBA players and they watch NBA players, and that's why you see all the new superstars are international players. And unfortunately, you could get something like that with Messi getting involved, like Giannis, like LeBron James, like Kobe Bryant, who traveled the world with the NBA, but you don't get that, unfortunately, with Messi. You just get that show when he goes to Honduras, when he went to Peru and went to all these places where obviously he's loved because he's one of the most important players in the history of the game. But unfortunately for MLS, that doesn't mean anything.
Tunde Balak says, no need to rewrite history. The Ultras had an issue with the transfer policy at PSG, and Messi and Neymar were the scapegoats. PSG offered a renewal, but Messi didn't want to stay. Look, man, you as a player, you are given what you earn, right? If Messi had gone to Paris Saint-Germain and they had won the Champions League, I'm sure his time there, he would have been deemed an absolute hero and he would be looked at fondly. He did not win. He did not deliver consistently enough at a high enough level for what that project was, and it was a very ambitious project. They only just now won the Champions League without him. So he was criticized for that, and that's what he was, judged against. And then any decision he made outside of the world, extra futbolístico, like taking a trip to the Middle East and things like that, then that got judged even harsher because the results weren't there. If the results were there, then maybe it wouldn't be judged so harshly. You are given what you earn when it comes to being a professional player. The sentiment around you, oh, well, it's a little unlucky because this, and this. Well, look, that's what happened. That's what you got. Messi is very well revered and well loved in most parts of the world. Maybe not Portugal. Maybe Brazil is okay.
Brazil?
Maybe at this point.
Mexico.
Mexico for sure. Cincinnati definitely not. But in most places, Messi has earned that. And how has he earned that? By winning with Barcelona, being a regular goal scorer or a serial winner. Winning the World Cup, Copa America, like he's earned that. He's earned that. But that doesn't mean he's at other stops where he hasn't earned that. It's because of, it's not his fault. Like it can never just be like, it's all his credit when he succeeds, and then when he doesn't, well, it's not his fault. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. Yeah. And Andrea, let's quickly start to change gears and start to wrap it up because we've got 13 minutes before we hit our end time. We're doing very good. I'm being very strict about this. Inter Miami will play FC Cincinnati on Saturday at Chase Stadium in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. This is the last game before the start of the League's Cup. Woohoo! We're so excited for the League's Cup. It's a big matchup. Inter Miami lost FC Cincinnati just 8 days ago in Cincinnati. They meet again, this time on Inter Miami soil. Lionel Messi has never scored on FC Cincinnati. Let's go with the premise that he plays and Jordi Alba plays. Because, again, we haven't had availability this week, so we don't have a official wording. But let's go with the premise that they are both available and healthy to start. How does Inter Miami do in this game? Because they were thoroughly outplayed just over a week ago.
Yeah, I think they are playing at home now that it's an advantage for them. They feel more comfortable playing here, but I think it's going to be hard because we saw that game against Cincinnati, and Cincinnati is really a good team. And they have Evander, of course, who is their best player now, but they are a really good team with a good system. And we have talked about it here, those are the teams that make it difficult for Inter Miami, especially now with Javier Mascherano, because he cannot figure out teams that have that kind of system like FC Cincinnati do. And they're going to be difficult here. I think obviously Inter Miami has an advantage because of playing at home, but it's going to be hard, especially because we talked about this. Evander is going to be tired of going to Austin, then from Austin to Cincinnati, and Cincinnati, Miami. That should play a part. I don't know if he's going to start, but it will be interesting to see if Cincinnati also has the same game mentality playing away from home. So it will be an interesting matchup. Last time it was not good for Inter Miami. I think it was one
thoroughly
of the worst
outplayed.
games. They played. They seemed novatos. They seemed like rookies in that game. And I think it will be interesting now because when two teams play in this amount of time, it can be beneficial for the team that wins the first game, but it also means that you as the hosting team and the team that lost the first game can correct
adjust
some stuff.
Correct. You can adjust and correct.
Not playing, I think it will be. We still don't know the extent of his injury, but him not playing could be a thing because. For me personally, I don't know you, Franco, but for me personally, I don't understand why Jarbro has not played these games that Ustari has made.
Sentido común, Andrea. Sentido común.
Like when I heard him tell you that, I was like, I wish that we were in person because I would have said, well, sentido común, 4 dedos de frente, entonces que juegue el que ha sido campeón, ¿verdad? Pero well, that for me is something because Cincinnati has good shooters from outside the box. And you need a strong.
You know what Cincinnati. You know what I find fascinating about Cincinnati is obviously they have attacking talent in Evander, but they're a little bit different than most MLS teams, right? Most MLS teams, we talk about the money is spent in the attack, right? And that's just how MLS rosters are built. It's just the way MLS is. But if you look at FC Cincinnati and their back five, they've got DeAndre Yedlin and they've got Matt Miazga and they've got, was it Miles Robinson now, correct? If I'm not mistaken, right? So they've invested money in that defense. They've put in money in that defense that can't go to different parts of the attack. They've done things a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And they really, really, really squeezed the life, or they clamped Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, and co. in that game in Ohio just over a week ago.
And I think that tells you that Pat Noonan, even though we have criticized him in the past, has been a good coach for this team, because he went through losing their best player and having a fight with him and him leaving, and to keep this team going. When we saw Luciano Acosta left this year, we thought, oh, this team is going to be bad. But no, they brought Evander, who is a great player, but a player that adapted to a system, a player that came from fighting with his coach, our beloved Phil Neville, fighting with his players. But I think
I want to say for Inter Miami, I think it's going to come down to Javier Mascherano's game plan and the preparation that was done this week, right? Away from the cameras, away from
those mistakes,
away from the criticism. I think, look, a lot of talk last week was about the fatigue, and then Inter Miami was tired, and there was heavy legs, which again goes up to his rotation, which he doesn't really do much of. Then a few days later, they played the Red Bulls. They went behind, and then they scored 5 and played very well and put forth a very good performance. So there were no tired legs there, or the tired legs weren't seen there. That wasn't talked about.
They're tired always when they play a good team.
They're tired when they lose. Yeah, okay. Well, look, this week they've had a full week to prepare, rest, get ready for the game. So that excuse is out the window. I don't want to hear all that they're tired on Saturday. But what I think it's going to come down to is having Mascherano's game plan. Because, look, a lot of this season, and we've talked about this, and you and I agreed on the last pod about this, has come down to just Messi's magic or individual moments of brilliance. I don't think that's going to be enough. Against a team like Cincinnati, where the defense has talent, there's actual talent, not saying it's to the level of Messi, but there's more talent on that back line than there is in most teams in this league.
An MLS team, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So there's more talent back there. I don't think Messi, even if he scores his first goal of his career against FC Cincinnati, or even scores 2, I don't think just individual moments are going to be enough for Inter Miami. I think they need to collectively play better. They need to have clear tactical ideas. I don't think that we've seen clear tactical ideas since the Club World Cup by and large. I think, you can talk about the 5-1 win against the Red Bulls or the 4-1 win against Montreal, but those are teams that Inter Miami is expected to beat because they just have more talent, right? You still have to put it on paper, take it off paper, put it on the field. But by and large, talent normally wins out more often than not, right? The cream normally rises to the crop. Now, this game's a little bit more even in terms of overall talent. Mascherano has a big task ahead of him. Big task. If we see that Inter Miami that we've seen under Mascherano at times this year, where the idea is not clear, the cohesion isn't there, they're struggling to really find their game plan, then I think Inter Miami could have another rough night. Andrea, prediction. Does Inter Miami win? Do they lose, or do they draw at home at Cincinnati?
I think I'm going to go with the same thing I said last game, just because of the fact we were both wrong, but just because of the fact that they have the advantage of playing at home, that they're going to draw.
They will draw.
But it's going to be, I think the most difficult game, it could turn into a Vancouver, that game that was played here where they were outplayed completely. It could turn into that, because it could turn into the at the same moment that I'm telling you this, that they could draw, it could turn ugly and be the worst game that they played this year in at home, because Cincinnati is just a good team.
Tunde Balak says, Mascherano doesn't have any clear identity beyond staying solid and relying on the Barca boys' chemistry. And I will say that Inter Miami wins 3-2 in a very entertaining and intense match. I think that they will win. I think Messi gets his first goal against Cincinnati. I think they'll get 3 points. And I think it's going to just lead to more of the drama and the debates and the dialogue, conversation, the criticism of why was Messi allowed to play? Why was Jordi Alba allowed to play when they missed the All-Star game midweek? I think Inter Miami's going to win. I think Messi's going to score. I think it's going to all lead to ballooning this topic up even
Cincinnati
further.
Owners not voting for anything that Inter Miami is bringing forward in the MLS meeting, governors meeting. I can see that happening. They have a big advantage playing at home. And listen, that
Messi scores, yes or no?
Yes, he scores.
Yes, okay. But you say they tie.
Yeah, I say they tie. Because I know that Cincinnati scores also multiple goals in many of their matches. I think they draw. But I see Messi scoring. He's just in a great form. That pass he gave Jordi Alba last game was just magnificent. It was Jordi Alba and Messi can play with their eyes.
Hey, Luis Suarez hit a hell of a pass too. Give Luis Suarez. He's not scoring, but hell of a pass that he hit to Messi for Messi's second goal. And you did touch on a quick topic that I want to touch on very quickly before we call it a night, and that is the goalkeeping spot. Oscar Ustari suffered an injury in that first game against FC Cincinnati over a week ago. Rocco Rios Novo, not William Yarborough, was the player who was summoned off the bench in that match. He had a blunder later in that game, Rocco Rios Novo did, in terms of parrying a shot. He didn't get it to safety. He put it on the doorstep for a rebounded finish. I think it was Vander, if my memory serves me correct. Mm-hmm. And 3 days later against the Red Bulls, Rocco Rios Novo starts again instead of in place of William Yarborough. He comes out to punch the ball clear on the corner kick. Buscó mariposas. I don't know. He was catching butterflies. I don't know what he was doing.
Yes.
So he completely misses, and it's an easy goal for the Red Bulls. So in his two appearances here in the middle of the season, Rocco Rios Novo, who, look, I don't blame him. He's a young goalkeeper. He's committed 2 big mistakes that have led to goals for the opposing teams. You can't afford to have that happen every game because you're not going to always be able to come back from it. So that's something that has to be either cleaned up, or Mascherano just has to maybe take a chance on William Yarborough. And then I made a point.
It's not a chance, Franco, that you have a goalkeeper who is young, who is inexperienced, who hadn't played in first division, and you have a goalkeeper who played for his country, won titles, was the best goalkeeper in the Mexican league.
That was a long time ago, though. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, but you never lose that.
Nick Smith says, how do you completely miss a punch out? It's ridiculous. So we're about to wrap up because we're a minute away, Andrea. Sorry. And I will say this because you mentioned
I would go with Yarbrough. I don't understand Mascherano going with Rocco Rios Novo. It has no explanation.
He looks like Rocco Rios Novo looks like he's overwhelmed by the moment. Like he's nervous. And that's fine. He's a young goalkeeper. Probably should feel that way.
I will say you should play the experienced one, right? But
I will say this
never
because
know with Mascherano.
Oh, I like this. Mr. Spider Pig says Rocco Rios nervioso. I like that. I will say this because Andrea mentioned it earlier. And maybe for those of you, that don't watch the YouTube channel and the interviews, although you should subscribe, follow, like. I'll just share the quick context. Last Friday in the Matchday -1 press conference, I asked Javier Mascherano directly why Rios Novo over William Yarborough in that game against Cincinnati in which Ustari gets hurt. And Mascherano's response to me, which I have no problem with, so not complaining or saying, it was rude or anything of the like, perfectly fine. He said, common sense. And then his explanation was a bit confusing, but I understood what he was trying to say. He said, Rocco Rios Novo is the next man up. He's the third goalkeeper on the depth chart behind Callender. That Yarborough is only here because Drake Callender got hurt. Look, man, I think you got to start Yarborough if Rios Novo. You might give him another chance, but if Rios Novo keeps making mistakes, you got to start Yarborough. All right, we'll leave it there. We hit an hour and 10. Thank you to all the viewers. Thank you to all the listeners. The comment section was very, very alive. today as
Yeah,
we
thank
expected.
you,
We could have
everyone.
gone on for another hour like we normally do.
Franco,
But
you need to give your final thoughts about the information you had about Rodrigo de Paul that you said. You
oh,
cannot end
that's right. We said we were going to
without
give an
saying-
update on Rodrigo de Paul. I heard that he is in South Florida. Earlier today, Inter Miami traded for an international roster slot with the Portland Timbers. So maybe Phil Neville doing his former side a nice one there solid. So the steps are there. Todo está encaminado. Everything is in place for the signing and the announcement to be made. I actually have more details as to why De Paul might have chosen Inter Miami. Besides that Messi's here, besides that, he's going to get paid well and all that. It's interesting. I wish Jose was here because I know he would have no clue what I'm talking about, but it might have to do with
his girlfriend.
It might have to do with one tiny. So that's all that you know who that is.
Didn't they break up, man? That drama.
You know who that is. Jose has no idea who that is.
Listen to me. Listen, I'm calling it now. I don't know what day is today. 24th of July, 2025. I'm calling it now. Rodrigo de Paul is gonna be the first player in Inter Miami history to have a big scandal while he's here because he just cannot avoid it. He is that type of player, and the scandal he had with his ex-wife and Timmy and all that drama is gonna be juicy, and it's gonna be good for Inter Miami because we're due for a player like that here.
Well, we'll talk about it some other time. The announcement should be any day now. So hey, we'll have a press conference with Rodrigo de Paul. Maybe we'll get to talk to him. Maybe we can ask him some questions about Messi. All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Always appreciated. Give us a like, a follow, a share, a subscribe. Send this to your friends, your family. We'll be back next week. We'll be back again. I don't know when next week because the Leagues Cup's there and the schedule gets wonky, but we will be back next week at least once. We'll try to get the gang together. It's been a while. Alonso's back from his trip to Peru. He was at All-Star. Jose has been busy, but we're going to try to get the squad together. I don't think we've ever had the four of us together. Maybe next week.
No,
is
we
the
had.
week.
I think one show because
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot going on in my life right now. So I can't remember as much as I'm also getting older. As much as
Daddy's brain. That sounds horrible. A dad's brain. You're having instead of mommy brain.
There's just a lot going on, man. There's a lot going on. I got the missus. I got the baby. I'm trying to read books. I got a lot going on here. Rest in peace to Hulk Hogan, absolute legend, leyenda, childhood icon. So, all right, we'll leave it there. We'll talk to you guys in a few days. Thank you for tuning in, for agreeing, disagreeing, criticizing, praising, all of the above. We'll talk to you guys again in a few days. Have a great night, everybody.